Well, good morning. It's the appointed time, and Carol, I believe we have a quorum present. Do you agree? A quorum is present, so we're going to call the meeting to order. We have a very ambitious agenda today, so we're going to move along briskly. You've been furnished copies of the minutes of the December 17th meeting. Are there additions or corrections? Been moved and seconded. We approve the minutes of the previous meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. In your packet, you have received a copy of the revenue and expenditure report for the period ending December the 31st and also the budget and obligations report. David, do you have any comments about those?
Yes, sir. I'd like to briefly go over these. This is the revenue expenditure report for the period ending December 31st, 2015. On the revenue side for the month, there's $9,018,817. Fiscal year, $55,763,126, and a total program of $584,087,697. On the expenditure side for the month, $8,641,172. For the fiscal year of $33,734,789, and a total program expenditures of $148,699,094. The major items for each of the categories on the expenditure side for the month, for the river, obviously it's construction. We're building the whitewater, and the health and wellness. We also have construction underway. The fairgrounds, we have construction underway, and the convention center is design fees and land acquisition. Then you also have the budget and obligations report that I can answer if you have any questions on. I would like to point out that on the revenue side, we continue to show 5.7% above target, but I must tell everybody that that's for the entire program, and it takes into account the excess collections that we've enjoyed in previous years. But the last 3 months, we've actually been below target a little bit. I'm not panicking or anything. I'm just making sure that everybody understands that we have been below target for the last 3 months. The highest one was 5.67%, and it ranges between 2.64 and 5.67.
Any questions for David regarding the revenue and expense report or the budget and obligations report? Michael, you've read it and we're okay. You don't have any comments. I feel better already. Shall we receive the report then? It's been moved and seconded that we receive the report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The reports are received. Item 4 is a presentation today on the downtown park. David?
Yes, sir. It's a presentation on MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park Project M3-P006. I'd like to keep everybody up to speed as to what's going on with the design, and there's certainly a lot going on with design of the park. We have the actual design of the upper park, and then we have the preliminary report with the lower park. So Gavin McMillan is here from Hargraves to give you an update on this.
Welcome, Gavin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the interest of speed, we'll run through this as fast as possible so you all can get to lunch today. This is an update for the upper park, just to make you all aware. At the end of this month, we will be submitting 60% construction drawings. And then sometime this summer, we'll be completing 100% and going out to bid. I just want to update you on where we are in the progress. We've looked at the rental potential of the park to help the potential operator in thinking about how they would manage the park. This diagram shows all the areas that can actually earn income for the park and offset its operational costs. So this will be helpful in the operator thinking about how they're going to run the park, but also to work complementary with the convention center across the road. So we've scheduled out every event area, the utilities it has, the square footage, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a good tool in thinking about how the park's going to run in the future. Some update on the architecture. We had some smaller structures that were added after input from the preferred operator. One of them is what we're calling the picnic grove trellises. This is the area where the food trucks would pull up alongside of the street in Robinson. There's 3 structures there that would have picnic tables underneath, so you can order your food at the food trucks and go sit underneath these. They provide shade in the interim until the trees are established, and make the park much more livable in the meantime. And they're right next to the fountain as well, so kids and families can also use these as well. View from the boulevard, so much needed shade in the interim. The other area we're looking at is 2 areas that would be used for smaller functions, and particularly weddings, which has been successful at Myriad Gardens at the moment. These 2 areas basically have a trellis over the top, some shade, a little arbor at one end that can be used for a very small wedding party here. There's a slightly larger one in this particular instance here that could be used for school groups, also for educational purposes for a school group, but also for a variety of other uses as well. So these are set within the woodland to help make the spaces much more habitable. The larger structure that was added after input from Myriad Gardens, we call it the Park Pavilion, or AKA the Skate Pavilion, which Myriad Gardens would see they could run roller skating underneath during the summer months. It's meant to be a multifunctional building, so it's basically a big shed. We have since thought, because it is so big and it is a little far away from Union Station, we've added 2 little modules to it. One is a kiosk, so they can actually sell at least some water up there, a little bit of snacks, and another module that actually has some restrooms in there. So if this is a center of activity, then you don't have to go all the way back down to Union Station to relieve yourself. So as I said before, it's basically a big roof that has 2 little modules out the back. And if for some reason this area grows and needs more, a module can be added on as it grows. So again, we're looking for more flexibility. You can see it here in the context of the Skydance Bridge behind it. In this particular instance, the module faces the main pathway in from Robinson. Here's a pop-out window, so it can be staffed and manned as well. Here we are looking on the boulevard back into it, and from Skydance back down. And this is set in the context of repeating the family of elements that's used in the architecture throughout the park: the cafe on the boulevard, the boathouse next to the lake, the play pavilion next to the playground, and the stage in the oval. So it's really a family of elements, and that will also be repeated in the lower park as well. We've just begun to look at the repurposing potential of Union Station. So this is in progress. We've started allocating and assessing some of the spaces here to get the total square footage. The square footage of the building is about 45,000 square feet. And with the view of setting a budget on what the potential operator could use Union Station for, even though beyond that is not actually part of our scope. But we're just assessing the potential of it for others to look at that in the future. So we've just started measuring all the square footages, and we'll develop a spatial program that we will show you next time around. And as we're all aware, there's a lot of the 80s to demolish inside the building. There's a huge mezzanine floor that accommodates the offices now, but that will be demolished in the future. So next steps, we're going to look at more of the input. Myriad Gardens is testing some of the market potential for running the food and beverage concessions and the event concessions within the park. As you're all aware, the convention center is starting up in real time now. So we look forward to coordinating with them, and we've just started that process on this trip here. Next time we'll come back and look at the park furniture in detail, so we'd love to show you that, and then update on Union Station as it progresses further. So that's the upper park. The lower park, as you all remember, lower park we're looking at in terms of schematic design. The biggest challenge out of this is that we transferred $4 million out of the lower park budget into the upper park to pay for some of the things that we just showed you. So we wanted to look at the lower park and the impact of what taking $4 million out of that would do. So that's part of this exercise. The second part of the exercise is some new information. And as some of you are aware, we now have an potential out parcel right here, depending on acquisition. As David reported yesterday to the subcommittee, negotiations have started back up again. So we are hopeful that that won't be a constraint in the future, but we were asked to study what would be the impact if we had to work around that parcel. So other than taking out 1.5 acres out of the park, functionally the park would still work. The main boulevard would go around it. We would have to screen it off because it's used for parking of trucks, not consistent with the park use. But we could basically build around it and work around it to make the rest of the park happen. The impact of it is that there's a mid-park walk that would not happen in the interim period. So we were reassessing, after input from the park subcommittee, what was different about the lower park, how not to confuse it with the upper park. So as you all know, a lot of the programming and certainly the budget is in the upper park. In the lower park, we're trying to downplay the programming or the programming field. So we're building a lot upon what already exists there, making a few improvements, one with the sports area, the multi-use fields, and the other is in an overlook that pops up and looks at the river at the southern end of the park. And then the third one is basically putting in a community gardens program, which is low cost, but it adds a different program to what exists in the upper park. There you can see the connection and the impact of the out parcels there as we move forward. You've seen these existing images before. I'll skip through those. One of the other things that we found out is we are unfortunately blessed like the upper park. There's a low spot in the lower park, and it will, in a flood event, act as a bathtub. So it will fill up. And so consequently, having to arc the promenade around the out parcel actually helps us because it keeps the promenade at a higher level, while these lower levels actually flood in an event. Existing trees, we've been very purposeful in keeping as many existing trees as possible and supplementing those with about 400 and something in change of new trees compared to about 900 in the upper park. Integrating the streets, we will, like the upper park, we'll improve the streets to the back of the curb on each of the new sides, parallel parking up against the park where we can. Addressing Robinson is important to make Robinson feel like the complete street from the upper park to the lower park. Existing buildings, again, we're still looking at these, but the ones that front Robinson are illustrated on the right there. And we're also looking at whether any of the old funky retro signs could be repurposed or reused in the park or near the park as well. Potential new structures, in terms of restroom needs, we see the priority would be in the north, near the sports park area, and also in the south. With the out parcel in the middle, it's not possible to have a building that would service the missing gap in here. Circulation, definitely the promenade is prominent, and we had a mid-park meandering walk, which if that out parcel comes back in, we could make that connection that obviously is missing there, but it was important to the subcommittee that we have this mid-park walk and feel like that you can just meander through the existing trees. Unlike the upper park, we are a little more constrained in budget, so we're not irrigating 100% of the park. We're irrigating about 40% of the park in the basic option, and we have priced out what it would cost to irrigate 100% of the park if that grows into the future. The programming areas, very simple, as I said before, the sports in the north and the community gardens in the south with an overlook that looks at the river that can be used for smaller events. So consequently, there's lots of unprogrammed space that just exists between the trees here. So here's the plan there in a little more detail. Sports park up here, mid-block here, and the community garden and farm here, and then the overlook right here, and illustrating the existing riverfront park as it exists now. So looking over the sports park, and again, it doesn't feel like a sports complex. It feels more like sports facilities within a park. I'll just show you a review we did here. So this is sitting under some of the existing trees. In the basic option, we're doing one synthetic field that is lit at night from the advice of the Parks Department because it'll be very well used and natural grass will not stand up to the wear and tear. So this is the one field in the basic option. There's room to add a second field later if there is the demand there. And the pavilion that addresses the soccer field behind us also looks at the basketball courts on the other side. So again, we're repeating the architecture of the upper park here, and providing shade, shelter, and restrooms is important. The woodland lawn is basically adding on some more trees to what already exists. So very low key, just walking through, and most of the field is the existing trees, so the field is kind of like this. And the woodland lawn has a little more space. You see the Skydance Bridge in the background as well. The hollow lawn is the lowest point of the site. This is the one that's going to flood the most. So we have rain gardens as much as what we did in the upper park here to treat the stormwater before it goes back into the river. Here's an illustration here of some of the circular areas that we did in the upper park. And again, a lot of existing trees here that we hope to build upon and retain. The next block down is the community garden and the city farm. This is a program that Myriad Gardens has advised on would work very well with what exists there now in terms of the youth involvement, but also long-term, as this area is developed, new people that move in, there would be demand to run program here as well. Again, small scale, it's only 2.5 acres, and we think it's more like programming, because if this doesn't work out, it can actually be changed quite easily to something else. The only difference from doing a lawn area is really the raised beds. In the background there, you can see our second pavilion there. Again, restrooms for the middle of the park, but also picnic tables and the ability to do some grilling if you're allowed to pick your own vegetables and eat them there. And last but not least, the Glade lawn at the bottom here. Here we're going to build up a small amphitheater, and we're just going to be high enough to see over the road and back to the river, which would be fantastic, because this area is in a low point because of the levee built on the road. So we're just going to bump it up a little higher, so looking south, you get a glimpse of the river and the structures in the background there. One of the things we asked, there's two options here on the edge of Robinson. Myriad Gardens suggested the idea of a prairie garden that would stretch, the longest prairie garden in Oklahoma. It would stretch 5 city blocks. But we also looked at an alternative, and the prairie garden would be much about native grasses. Towards the I-40, you'll see Skydance in the background, the Devon Tower, very sculptural elements that look like they're actually part of a sculpture park. But we were asked to look at another alternative here. The problem with the prairie garden is we couldn't do street trees on Robinson because they'd shade out the grasses. So in this particular option, we've continued the 180 project streetscape all the way down, trees from start to finish, and then the panels in between became flexible spaces for programming later, depending on how the neighborhood develops on the east side of Robinson. So these actually, two ideas can actually coexist. So the northern area could actually be the prairie garden, and the streetscape, Project 180 streetscape, could also happen from 10th Street down. And again, the promenade, much like the upper park, this will be the dominant element. So as you're driving along Robinson from upper park to lower park, you will read the promenade from the street that has a light mast at night, and they both go towards the Skydance in the middle. So at night, it's going to be quite spectacular. So repeating the same elements as the upper park here. Here's the bottom line, the existing site there, and we're just showing how many existing trees we're actually keeping throughout these options. The middle slide there is the basic option. That's our budget, $20.5 million. And the difference there is we have one soccer field. We have a little thinner topsoil. A lot of the areas are just seeded, like the upper park, which we can afford sod. But we have time on our side here, so that's not such an important thing. 40% of the basic option is irrigated, and 2 pavilions. We call the enhanced option is kind of where we were in the old budget. So the things that we're not affording right now is the second synthetic field, an actual stage for the amphitheater, a deck stage, 100% irrigated, full depth of topsoil, and the third pavilion. So that's the difference between the options there. So that's where we're at. We're going to take it a little further and come back next time, and we'll probably have just one scheme on Robinson to show you and talk about. So with that, I'll answer any questions I can.
Anyone have a question?
I will certainly get that for you.
Anyone else have a question? Michael?
I'm curious about out partial, I guess he was referring to. I'm not familiar with what's going on there.
Well, that's Cusack Meads, I think, isn't it, David?
It's property that's in the park, but it has to do with property that is outside of the park also. The actual business is outside of the park, and the property that's inside of the park is accessory property where they park and they turn trucks around. If we were to condemn and take that property, we would need to take the whole business because we would damage the business by taking a part of it. Our initial meetings with them and somewhat negotiations, I guess you'd call them, they wanted a considerable amount of money to take the whole property, the business, and what we needed in the park. It was actually more than our entire lower park land budget. So we made the decision just to take that out for right now.
Michael, this is a business that's been there for 75 or 100 years?
Probably.
Cusack Meats, something like that. And what David is, one of the other things involved is not just the cost of the property, but the relocation cost of the business, which I think would, is that included in that, Amanda and Carol? So it's not as simple as just acquiring a piece of property. It's a significant, long-standing business that would require some special damages in a condemnation action. So it turns out to be a very expensive piece of property. Bob?
Can we assume, though, that if at some time in the future the business decided to move or change in some way, we could acquire the property and easily incorporate that into the park plan?
Absolutely, but as Gavin said, we've actually started negotiations again, or discussions with the property owner, so we'll just have to see how that turns out.
Anyone else?
It's a parking lot, and it's also an area where they turn trucks around in order to access their dock.
There's not other land in the area that would be available.
There is land available, but the way the building's configured, they need to access it from the east side.
Yes, Dee.
What about set up for outdoor movies? I know the Myriad Gardens does have outdoor movies, but would that be on the center stage?
Yes, that could be done virtually anywhere in the park. They would probably use a mobile concession. So yes, there could be community screenings down here. So the lower park, the idea of the lower park is a much smaller scale and more intimate than the upper park. So something like small movies would be perfect program down here.
And if there were like any film festival, say Kung Fu Film Festival or whatever, could food trucks come in? And
Yes,
we'd have to take
but
a
unlike
bill?
the upper park, they're on their own power down here.
Okay.
The upper park, they can plug in and sit there for a long time. Down here, it's much more flexible. So if there's a soccer game on, they can go up there. If there's an event down the southern end, they can go down there.
Okay, but does this include the equipment? Would you have the equipment, or would that have to be rented or purchased? Or?
It would be rented. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Cecilia? Okay. All right. Well, if no more questions, Kevin, thank you very much for that report. That brings us to item 5 on the agenda, a discussion of a temporary name. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 5 is discussion/action on temporary name for the MAPS 3 Downtown Public Park, Project M3-P006. There's been a lot of names floated around that people have made up for the park, so to speak, a lot of names that it's referred to. So we thought it would be nice if we just officially adopted a name that we could all uniformly, refer to the park. So yesterday, the Park Subcommittee voted and agreed and voted on and approved the name as the MAPS 3 Park. Now, if Mr. Dover wants to add anything to that or not.
Michael, any?
Not really, just accept that we thought it was an opportunity to
kind of reinforce the brand of MAPS in a way that a lot of the other projects don't incorporate MAPS 3 per se in the actual name. So at least going forward, of course, down the road, when there's a permanent name, there are other options. This is only temporarily while we're going through this process.
Now, David, this requires action by the advisory board, and then that will go into council for adoption with them, or what is the process here?
Well, we certainly need approval today. I don't know if we'll take that to council or not. We'll just call it that from now on among ourselves.
So we're just trying to do this to make Bill Crumb's job easier.
That's right.
Is that what we're thinking here?
That's part of it.
Okay. Well, that's a worthy goal. That's a worthy goal. Any other discussion?
If you consider, I mean, MAPS 3, I like the idea of branding it and getting MAPS 3 on there, but adding Downtown Park or something like that so people actually know kind of where it is, or Quarter Shore Park, or, I mean, those are the names that have been kind of tossed around, and they at least tell you which park we're talking about and where it's located. So I didn't know whether that was considered, MAPS 3 Downtown Park or MAPS 3 Quarter Shore Park or something along those lines.
David, well, it actually was considered, but the committee really thought that, again, just the brand, the MAPS 3 would be the better option at this point, as opposed to incorporating the word downtown or anything like that.
Okay, we have the recommendation from the subcommittee. Is there a motion anyone wants to make? It's been moved and seconded that we adopt or approve a temporary name for the park project as the MAPS 3 Park. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is adopted. Item 6, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6 is recommend resolution approving change order number 13 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2 new expo building decrease of $66,916.88, project M3-F002. The first 4 items in this are very routine items that you would see in a construction project, especially a project of this size. There's masonry wall modifications, as I said, routine stuff, framing revision, there's soffit vents, and then there's some roof-supported curbs. The main item that I'd like to discuss on this change order is item 5, and that's the paint remediation schedule extension credit. Now, this is a credit. This is money the contractor is giving back to the project of $90,000. If you recall, I believe it was last month, there was a presentation given about the paint issue that we have at the expo building, and that is in remediation right now. But in our meetings with the contractor, he has told us that it won't be finished in June, and rather than wait till June and us be pushing on him and worrying and charging him liquidated damages, which are $1,000 a day. The contract is set up for $1,000 a day. He has proposed, and we have accepted, and the Fairgrounds Subcommittee has also accepted this change order that includes basically moving the schedule 90 days further and us getting $90,000 back, which would be the equivalent of those liquidated damages. It also sets a hard finish date for completion. And we're still, this represents a decrease of 0.18%, and we're still at 3.57% on the whole project. If Mr. Nealon wants to comment.
Bob, anything from the subcommittee?
Just we didn't have a quorum Tuesday, so this doesn't come to the advisory board with official action from the committee, but there was a lot of discussion, but ultimately consensus among the committee members who were present that we need to approve this. A bit of frustration that we keep getting some time lag on this, but I think given the nature of the project and the size of the project, perhaps not inevitable, but not surprising that we have these, and the contractors willing to get that extended time in exchange for money that saves us some in the budget. So not the most exciting prospect, but one we did have a consensus we ought to approve.
All right, then. Any other questions? Well, shall we approve the resolution?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. We approve the resolution for change order number 13 for the Fairgrounds project. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. David, item 7.
Item 7 is recommend resolution ratifying the issuance of and approving addendum number 1 for MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds New Expo Building food service equipment, awarding contract to Amundsen Food Equipment, $1,614,059, and approving the contract and bonds project M3-F002A. This is a project for the food service equipment that was bid, came back. It actually came in under budget. And as Mr. Nealon said, there wasn't a quorum, but it does come from the recommendation of those that were present that we award this contract.
Any questions? Comment, Bob? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that the resolution be approved. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 8.
Item 8 is recommend resolution approving final plans and specifications to be advertised for bids on MAPS 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Expo Building signage project M3-F002C. This is a small little additional project for building signage. I have a quick presentation with Alan Brown here, and he can describe the project for you.
Well, good morning. This is part of the signage and wayfinding budget that you might have seen in the overall budget presentation. And I want to say that the construction project itself has signage. It has code-required signage, restroom signage, that type of thing. So this is primarily building signage that's not required, but help the building function. And you can see there's a new rendering on the front here that's shows the LED lights too. They're a part of the project, and you can see one of the signs is on the front, the Fairgrounds Event Center signage. This is a plan that shows the location of the various projects. On the bottom is the signage I just mentioned, the building entry ID signage is called. Inside the main lobby is the ticket window ID signage, and on the northeast and northwest, the top left and right corners will be secondary building entrance signage plus secondary ticket window signage. This is the building entry signage. They're 4 foot tall, three-dimensional aluminum LED illuminated signage. During the day they'll appear to be sort of charcoal gray, and at night they'll be white. So that shows a little bit better what that will look like at the front entry. The main ticket window signage is about 8 inches tall, and it's over the main ticket windows inside the lobby. And you can see it's kind of in the back, behind the columns, but it says tickets behind the columns there. It's a white, again, aluminum letter. The third is a secondary building entry, which is approximately 4.5 feet tall, and it will be on the canopy. It's also LED illuminated letters. Go back. It'll be on the canopy, and I'll have a large in a second, at the northeast and northwest entries. And then ticket signage about a foot tall over the secondary ticket windows. This is a little bit better rendering and shows the location of you can see the ticket window signage, and then the large letters over the 2 entries, which will be illuminated. Estimated cost is $48,561,000. Going out to bid, and bids are due on March 1st. Bids awarded at the end of March, and then complete at the end of the project, which currently is September 7th, projected. Any questions?
Questions, Bob?
Alan, yesterday, as I recall, I had some discussion that the main sign, Fairgrounds Event Center, actually can change color and be
Oh, it's LED lighting. That's correct.
So it'd be like the Skydance Bridge, we can make it change color when
They
we
can
want.
decide what they want, along with the LED lighting in the cowl wall, the translucent
Right.
panel, so it should be interesting.
Any other questions for Alan? Shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. David, number 9.
Item 9, moving on to the river. We have a presentation on Maps 3 Oklahoma River Whitewater Facility Project M3-R004. We've got some incredible work going on down at the river on the Whitewater Facility, and wanted to bring a report to you to show you what's being done. So we have Jeffrey Guston here from S2O to give you a short presentation.
Morning.
Good morning. Thanks again for the opportunity to give you an update. Try to be quick. We are moving forward. I think the last update we gave was probably close to Thanksgiving to the board. Since that time, the majority of the focus has been to the east of the project. So we're starting off here with a picture of the upper pool. You'll see the pump station to the left-hand side of the slide, kayak building in the background, and the start of the construction of the upper pool. Quick look, snapshot of our schedule. Last column is essentially our total completion, about 85% complete to date. The items showing up down there on the bottom of the bar, mostly finish-out stuff, landscaping, irrigation, hardscape, some equipment, AV, security going into the building, and then the restaurant equipment. Building's about 85%, about 95% done on the concrete with the channels, and starting to do the process piping inside the pump station. Kind of start again on the east side of the site as we always do, which is the pump station. The small slide was essentially back in November. We have completed the pump station from the exterior perspective. You see all the inlet structures there for the pumps, and the scaffolding in the background is now the start of the walls for the upper pool. Again, the small picture back in October of the bottom pool, looking at the inlet structure to the pump station. And looking at the large slide, you can see where we are as of January 15th. Essentially, the bottom pool is complete, pump station is complete, the inlet structure, there's a gray inlet screening structure that's in place, and the only thing remaining on this section is basically the conveyor to go in, which is starting next week. We did get the pumps in about 3 weeks ago. All 6 pumps went in. It took about 3 hours to get them in the hole, so now they're basically running all the power and control cables back to the pump station. Continue to do that, as well as slide forward, looking at the process piping on the inside of the pump station. This is your mechanical filtration and ozone treatment system for the 9 million gallons of water in the pool. Did a lot of process on the channels themselves. One thing that we've really kind of focused on the last 30 days has been the installation of the rapid blocks. We're about 80 to 85% complete on both channels in the bottom pool with the rapid block installation. You can see in the foreground the blue masses are completed structures. In the center of the slide, at that first drop in the comp channel, you can see what it looks like when we're just starting to assemble. It's basically a bunch of Legos all over the place until we're tied down. Looking back down channel to the west, you can see from the competition channel here a couple structures that are already assembled. And again, these are basically put into the channel based on the hydraulic model we had done about 3 years ago. So, in the another thing of note, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the structural steel erected for the Rotary Point Pavilion. It's essentially a freestanding stage that's omnidirectional from the inner island as well as from the main building pedestrian pad. Looking from essentially the corner of Phillips and 6th Street, you can see we have just the asphalt in. The parking lot is complete, which is in the background. Looking down 6th Street, we have the top coat to put on that in Phillips. And then right now the work on the paving is continuing down 5th Street to the cul-de-sac at the end of the east side of the site. Looking the opposite direction from the same point, we see the main building and the entry plaza still graded out. We're going to start seeing some sidewalk and some of that entry plaza going in over the next 30 days. Closer look at the front, you can see the main building is complete on the exterior. The bridges were in a couple months ago. Now we're completing up the sidewalks. That framed portion in the foreground is the last sidewalk portion that was scheduled to be poured this afternoon. So we're finishing up all the pours within the channel at the completion of this week, and then again continuing to construct in the eastern direction on the channel. Inside the building, pretty much progressing. We've got a blue paint going in on the two-story space inside the structure, so that as soon as you come in through retail, on the right-hand side, that two-story space is all blue paint, basically wraps the corner and goes from down to the south along the kitchen area. We have a slide of that. Skipping to the office, offices are fit out, floors are done, walls are in, door frames are in, wall paint's in. So essentially right now we're working on ceiling grid, light structures, and then coming in with finishes. Looking back to the main building, you can see the rafting building to the left, complete from the outside. Again, another shot of the channel. The channel's been, at this point, if you go out there anytime in the next couple weeks, there'll be a lot of work in just cleaning up the channel and getting it ready for water. A couple shots of the rafting building, just update on where we're at with construction. Overhead doors are in, working on some interior work within this, and then as well as the kayak building. This is a couple shots of the Rotary Pavilion steel, which again is right there at the bottom pool. It's a freestanding band structure, essentially. Looking up channel to the kayak building. In the background, we have essentially one channel pour left on the the rec channel, and then at that point, it's just basically filling in the walls. This is a snapshot 30 days from now, so kind of paint a picture for you where we're at the end of February. The construction on the channel system should be complete, all concrete complete at that point. Pump station and all of its process piping done, plumbed, conveyor in, head gate in. All of our process for the actual channel system should be done. Going into March 1st is essentially fine-tuning the equipment, so March will be basically running the systems, filling the pool with water, and getting the channel operational from a tuning perspective. On the buildings, 30 days from now, we'll still be working on the interior. We are working on the restaurant equipment right now. We started hanging the hoods in the restaurant area, so there'll still be a lot of work on the interior of the buildings. And then from a site perspective, you'll start to see a lot of the sidewalk going in and around the streets, and then the pedestrian pads around the main building and the rafting building. Any questions?
Questions, Bob?
Probably a stupid question, but where do we get all the water to fill this thing when it's done?
It's a good question.
It's an important question.
We've met with the utilities department. It is coming out of the fire hydrant on 5th Street. We have a plan for, their concern is obviously just time and trying to get it filled. So we're trying to get the pool. We have a couple things going on. We need to fill the pool, fill the bathtub, so to speak, to hold the water. But then we don't want it sitting there. We want to have the filtration process running as well, so we don't have to catch up on that. So as those both come online, about 2 weeks before that, we'll start, again, communication with the utilities department. And it's about a 10-day fill once we start putting the water into the pool.
Okay, I assume we weren't just collecting rainwater.
We'll take it if we can get it. But then that slows down other activities.
Thank you.
Dee?
What would cause the water to have to be drained out? Would it be like cholera or some, disease or what?
Let's not talk about that. As part of our manufacturing guidelines and operating guidelines for the operator, we recommend a 5 to 10 year dumping of the water. And it's really just for scheduled major maintenance. Everything in the bottom pool is serviceable. The pumps are serviceable by bringing them out of the top, from the top pool. The conveyor actually has a weir which allows you to work on it in a dry condition. So most of those things can be operated on a very scheduled basis. You don't have to dump the water.
So there would be no reason to.
Only if, you're looking for a catastrophic event, so we have structural cracking in the bottom pool. They can't get to it because you can't have access to it, and they can't build a coffer dam or anything. So they'd have to evacuate the water at that point. But
has that happened in North Carolina?
No. Charlotte actually is dumping theirs annually now, but it's more from they didn't run their filtration system, but maybe 2 weeks last year for other reasons. But it's into their operational model to operate their facility completely different than the way we have this one set up.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, while you're here, I want to say thank you. This is a fantastic report. I know that the city has tentatively set a date for ribbon cutting on this for April the 28th. Looks like you're on target to make that. And we're planning to have the U.S. Olympic trials for canoe and kayaking here in May. And if you guys hadn't done a great job, that just absolutely couldn't have happened. I want to say thank you.
Thank you very much, and I will put it back on the city. The city's done a great job, and Downey deserves a lot of credit. I mean, in the last 90 days, I've got guys that have been on the site every day with the exception of Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And they're doing what they need to do to get it done, and they're working hard. I mean, they're doing more than what they're supposed to be doing at this point, in my opinion.
We'll
But,
convey to all of them how much we appreciate the
I will.
extra effort they've put into this to make us be able to hit the deadlines that we had. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. All right, David, that brings us to item 10. Now that we said thank you, we need to talk about the money, don't we?
Yes, sir. Item 10 is recommend resolution approving change order number 13 for the MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Phase 3 Whitewater Facility, increase of $4,402.48. Project M3-R004/WC-0817/SC-0912. Most of these items are routine things. Item number 1 is some lighting modifications at the raft storage building. Item 2 is actually a credit for deleting a couple of security cameras. Another lighting credit is item 3, $447 for removing 4 fixtures that decided we didn't need there at the pro shop. There's a ceiling revision of a little more than $1,000, restroom finishes $2,098, and you know, these are items that as you go through construction, the architect or the operator may go through and say, hey, you know, I'd like maybe this moved over, or this, things that come to light in construction, but as I said, they're pretty minimal. Item 6, kitchen equipment credit of $3,600. It's because they picked a different refrigerated case, 2 of them, and it resulted in a credit. Another site lighting modification, $1,500. Pump station chemical room wall height revision. Needed to raise a wall 24 inches, so it's $2,000 in there. And then there's item 9 is a no-cost item, and that is really just to document that something is being changed within the plans. So I'd be glad to answer any specific questions that you might have on that.
Are there any questions? Shall we approve the resolution? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for change order number 13 for the Whitewater facility. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. That brings us to item number 11 on the agenda. And David, as you start, I should have said this at the beginning. Sue, who chairs that subcommittee, is performing her civic duty today. She has been called for jury duty. And so she had a higher calling for today, and she is not with us. David?
Item 11 is recommend resolution approving change order number 6 for the MAPS 3 Phase 1 West River Trail Connection, South Council Road to Northwest 10th Street, increase of $7,626.25, project M3-T001A. If you recall, last spring, last summer, and somewhat in the fall, we had some pretty excessive rains, and there was some damage to the trail while it was still under construction, and this is the final change order to wrap that up to compensate the contractor for the extra work he had to do for those large rainfalls. It's all mostly erosion control measures.
I'm just going to add that we didn't have a quorum yesterday, but this comes with a recommendation of the members of the subcommittee that were there that we would like to pass this. So I move that we pass the resolution.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution for this change order in item number 11. Further discussion? Michael?
David, I'm just curious, are we getting close to being able to accept these trail projects?
Yes, sir. I hope to have final acceptance next month at the meetings. We just had a little bit of trouble with the contractor wrapping up some small items and his punch list items.
Okay.
Further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution approving the change order is approved. Item number 12, David.
Item 12 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 1 to contract for engineering services with MKEC Engineering Incorporated for MAPS 3 Trails Improvements Phase 2, Project 3, I-44 West Trail, increase of $5,000, Project M3-T002B. This is one of the pieces of the I-44 trail. This is the one that we're still trying to finish the engineering on. It's the southern piece that starts somewhere around 16th Street and extends south to the river. There's a piece of the trail that was designed from 16th Street where it crosses I-44 and it goes across Old Grand Boulevard there, and it was up on the right-of-way on the east side. And as it went across there, it crossed a couple of houses, and one of these houses is fairly close to the street. And as we brought the trail through there, being that it's 12 feet wide, we had to add a 12-foot flat spot. And then we had to angle up the driveway, and it got excessively steep because of putting that flat spot in there. So we talked with the property owner and was going to have to work out a whole different driveway configuration, and his attitude was it was a rent house. He wanted us to just buy the property and deal with it. We don't necessarily want to buy the property because all we'd have to do is tear it down. So what we're looking at with this amendment is have MKEC look at possibly moving the trail to the west side of Grand Boulevard, which is part of the street, because Grand Boulevard is a one-way street, one-way north in there, but it's a very wide street because originally it was two-way. So it's about 36 feet. We want to take the 10 or 12 feet over there on the west side of the street and put either delineators or a curb or a barricade of some sort to try and protect the bicyclists and the walkers and the joggers through there, so that we can come off of 16th Street and turn and be on that side of Grand Boulevard, go under 10th Street and get into the fairgrounds area where we can get back up on 10th Street. So that was a long explanation, but it's additional engineering to accommodate that or accomplish that.
Questions?
Just add that, again, we didn't have a quorum. However, the members that were there were avid bike riders, and they believe that this is a better alignment this way, so we all recommend that we go forward with a resolution. So I move that we accept the resolution.
Is there a second? Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution with David's very complete discussion and explanation of what we're doing, for which I commend. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item number 13.
Item 13 is recommend resolution approving change order number 3 and amendment number 3 for MAPS 3 Phase 2, Project 2 sidewalk improvements, increase of $17,082, Project M3-W002A. This is the change order, as it says, for sidewalks. Routine items here, and remember that an amendment is an increase or decrease of items that we've already received prices for within the bid. Change order is additional items. So we have a change order, some additional curb and gutter in there, but the amendment goes with the 8-inch integral curb, some driveway removal, curb and gutter removal, 6-inch concrete driveway, type A curb ramp, type E curb ramp. So those last 5 items, 6 items already have established price. They're just additional quantities. Again, the subcommittee didn't have a quorum. They agreed to approve this.
Anything else, Zane? Been moved and seconded that the resolution approving the change order and amendment be approved. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 14, David.
Item 14 is recommend resolution approving change order number 2 for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1, increase of $22,349, Project M3-H002. This is for the, as it says, the Wellness Center number 1 that is under construction. The most significant item on this change order is a fire line modification, and the Utilities Department requested that, or required that the fire line be increased from a 6-inch line to an 8-inch line. So that increased the bore size that had to go underneath Rockwell, and in turn increased the casing size and the pipe size. But on top of that, there's a high-pressure gas line that's out there, and regardless of all the things that we try to do in pre-engineering, when you get out there and break the ground open, that's when you really find out where these things are. So the water line needed to be lowered also, so that was some additional expenses to lower that water line, make that bore pit deeper, and then to increase that line size. There's a time extension of 11 days, but it's at no cost. And there was some additional joists of $1,380 for the roof because of a change in a rooftop unit. So I'll be glad to answer any questions. And I'm sorry, this comes at the approval of the Senior Health and Wellness Subcommittee.
Any comment, Mike? Been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution. Further questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 15.
Item 15 is recommend joint resolution approving lease and management agreement between the City of Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, and Healthy Living and Fitness, Inc. for MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center Number 1, Project M3-H002A. So this is the lease agreement that you've seen, the binding term sheet that's been approved and we've been using for quite a while, but this is the final lease, and Mike Mize is here to give you a presentation on the high points of this lease.
Welcome, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, members, Manager Todd, always happy to be here to try and do my best to explain these things. This is an operating agreement that is in some ways unique for the City of Oklahoma City because of the nature of the facility, but on the other hand, the city has a significant amount of experience in contracting for operators for other kinds of venues. So Amanda Carpenter has been the lead on this for the Municipal Counselor's Office, and I want to thank Carrie as well for helping me put this together today. I will try to make this as brief as I can, but because this is the first one that we've done and because it has some fairly unique characteristics, I want to make sure that you're all aware of what the real salient points are within this contract, this operating agreement. The agreement is actually among three parties. It's the City of Oklahoma City, the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority, and Healthy Living and Fitness, Inc. The purpose of the contract is for the management, operation, and leasing of a MAPS 3 Senior Wellness Center. The special objective is to operate a senior health and wellness center in order to improve the health, wellness, and lives of seniors in the City of Oklahoma City and surrounding communities, accomplished through the integration of social, cultural, and medical initiatives in one facility. I promise to try not to read all the rest of the bullet points. The initial term is a 5-year term with the ability for 3 additional 5-year terms upon agreement by all parties. During the construction phase, and this is already, a lot of this has started and is taking place, but this is the time the operator is expected to secure and contract with all their subcontractors, tenants, and partners, and also is the time during which they're expected to hire and train their staff and volunteers. In consideration, the trust will lease the facility to the operator, who will provide the operation, management, and maintenance at no cost to the city. The operator will bear full responsibility for all financial costs, including startup, utilities, employment, employee salaries, and marketing. In exchange, the operator is entitled to all of the revenues from the facility. All net revenues are to be reinvested in the operations and maintenance of the facility. The purpose and use of the facility, this is important for the contract, not only the agreement, not just today, but going forward. It's to be operated as a senior health and wellness center, open to the public. It may not be converted to any other use, which would exclude this stated purpose. Some areas may be temporarily rented by other people for other purposes, and the facility may be reserved by the city for city functions at no cost to the city. Ownership of assets, and this describes a variety of things from physical equipment to the data that's gathered for the facility. All the property improvements and membership data will be solely the property of the city. Replacement equipment, and in this case that probably does not include computer equipment, which will probably be provided by the operator, but other equipment will be the property of the city, and any replacement equipment will be the property of the city as well. The operator will have access to the membership data for 2 years after the termination or expiration. Data processing programs and hardware will remain the property of the owner. So in terms of the data, the city will own it, will always own it during the lifetime of the operation and after as well. Subleases. The operator will be allowed to enter into subleases with the reasonable approval of the city manager. You will see throughout this summary that there are places where the city manager or the city manager's designee have reasonable approval rights and review capability with respect to the operation of the facility, and that's ongoing, and you'll see that continually through this presentation. The facility must remain open and available to the public for its intended use. All tenants have to abide by the exact same terms that the operator has to abide by. And the operator must provide the city manager with notices of all subleases. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment, some of it is being provided by the city. The operator is responsible for the maintenance and replacement of that furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Capital items are items with a value of greater than $7,500 and do not include FF&E. Any capital items will be replaced by the city, provided that the operator can document the fact that they have properly maintained that equipment. That's things like air conditioning systems, pumps in the pool, those kinds of things that are in excess of $7,500 that need replacement. The non-discrimination clause is pretty much a standard clause for the city of Oklahoma City. The last bullet point here is that violation of this clause can result in termination of the agreement. Days and hours of operation. The facility shall be open to members at least 65 hours per week, excluding federal holidays. Once again, this is a minimum. This is not the maximum amount of hours that the facility is going to be open. In all likelihood, some of these facilities may end up being open more than 65 hours. We wanted to set a minimum, and I think we actually discussed that at a subcommittee meeting. And the facility shall be open and available to members at least 4 consecutive hours on a weekend day. Once again, minimum requirement. Programming and services are on an attachment, which is at the end of the summary and at the end of the actual agreement. They're all defined there, and they describe a minimum level of services that need to be provided by the operator. Specific times of operation and the classes and other services are up to the operator, but the operator is expected to offer services which serve the needs of its particular members. This is important because, as we know, we have 2 fairly different facilities. They may serve different communities. This clause requires them to meet the needs of the people in their specific community. Fees. Fees can only be increased twice each year. fee increases are subject to the reasonable approval, again, of the city manager or designee. Following this is the schedule for fees. It's $30 for members at 200% or more of the published poverty level, 50% of the base fee for members who are between 100 and 199% of the published poverty level, and $5 per month for members below the published poverty level. The operator also has some discretion in these fees and whether or not they may want to waive them based on other circumstances. Sure.
What are the members going to do to prove what fee level they're supposed to be at? We have to.
In conversations,
it seems like it gets into a lot of privacy things.
In conversations that we've had with Bill Fleming and Randy Tate, they've both said they're just going to ask the question at the time someone applies for membership. They're not going to require a lot of documentation to validate that. They're essentially going to take the word of the potential member. On the right slide, yes, I am. The operator is responsible for security and secure operation and maintenance of the facility. They also have to provide policies and procedures to the city manager, which include facility use, prohibition against elder abuse, facility rental and booking, finance and accounting procedures, and safety procedures. So reporting outcomes and measures, this gets continued on the next page as well. The operator is responsible, once again, to ensure the safe and secure operation and maintenance of the facility. There are specific reporting requirements. There is a quarterly requirement that needs to be provided to the city manager that includes financial information, membership information, which is all listed here, and then any other information that the city manager may reasonably request. On an annual basis, an actual financial report is required, which contains budget and actual operating costs. More and more detailed information about membership and the satisfaction of the members with respect to both the facilities and the services provided. They need to provide an inventory list of FF&E. This is important because they're going to be responsible for maintaining, repairing, and, if necessary, replacing that FF&E. And if that FF&E was originally provided by the city, once again, that becomes the property of the city. Maintenance logs, and then, again, any other reasonable information requested by the city manager. The operator's employees shall be competent and, when necessary, licensed to perform the duties that they have. There's a minimum level of staffing that's required under the agreement. You can see that here, those 4 positions that are required. Background checks will be required to be performed on all prospective employees. And once again, the operator will not be allowed to discriminate based on the city's standard language. Any partners of the operator will be required to abide by these same terms and conditions. Sponsorship agreements. The operator may enter into sponsorship agreements for naming rights inside the facility, subject to the reasonable approval of the city manager. In some cases, these may be exclusive sponsorship agreements, but those cannot preclude the possibility that an entity that is renting the facility may have, as part of that rental agreement, a competing entity that, and they can't be excluded from any kind of sponsorship during that rental period. Customer service, common sense, but really important. They just have to deploy strategies and tactics which provide a high-quality customer experience and meet the needs of their their constituents. Additional terms, most of these are standard city boilerplate with respect to indemnification and insurance requirements. There is also a couple of termination provisions. There is the ability to terminate for default by 60 days prior written notice. There's the ability for the city to, in its own discretion, terminate the contract on 180 days written notice, but that also requires a vote of council. And the operator also has discretionary ability to terminate the contractor on the agreement on 180 days written notice. This is Exhibit D, which describes the minimum level of services which are to be provided at Healthy Living's Wellness Center. This list of services will be different probably for each of the wellness centers going forward, but once again, this is a minimum level of services to be provided by Wellness Center number 1. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Amanda, any additional comment from the city attorney's office?
I got it right today. I didn't get it all right yesterday. Thanks to Amanda and Carrie, it's right today.
Michael or anyone? Cecilia?
Move approval.
Been moved. Approval. Anything? Anyone want to second that? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this joint resolution approving the lease. This is kind of a benchmark day for us. This is the first one of these, and it's been a while in the coming, and it's a significant step. So I really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this, both by all the consultants, but by the city attorney's office as well. If there are no further questions or discussions, Bob?
Yeah, just a question of Amanda. Because this is the first time we've done something like this, is there an opportunity in the contract for periodic review of the contract terms in case things aren't working out the way they were hoped?
We always reserve the right to amend by written agreement between the parties. So, and then there are, as to specific terms, the ability to review and have the city manager actually amend those without having to go back through a formal process.
Okay, I assume those are in there. I just want to check.
Yes.
Thanks.
Further questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The joint resolution is adopted. Thank you for your work. David?
And continuing on with the senior health and wellness, the next item is recommend resolution approving final plans and specifications for the MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 2, project M3-H003. So this is our second senior health and wellness center, and Alan Brown is here again to give you a presentation on those plans.
Hello again. So the project is, we've been fine-tuning it, getting within budget and getting the documents together. It's substantially unchanged from what you've seen before. And just to review real quick, I'm sure you remember, the site south of Capitol High School, currently a parking lot and some tennis courts primarily, and north of Hosea Vineyard Park, which we're also tying into, you'll see in a second. This is a site plan that shows the facility on the south. The new parking, the darker gray to the north, is for the wellness center. The parking to the left is existing parking. It'll be used for the tennis courts, the new tennis courts to the south, east on the site. And you can see below there's a sidewalk that connects to the south that goes to Hosea Vineyard Park. They'll go actually allow access up to the high school as well, so everything's tied together that way. This is the floor plan, the primary floor level, and just to go through real quick, again, nothing's really changed on it. The brown area on the upper left is the clinic area, basically 3 pods that will be used. To the bottom, the left of that and bottom is the green is the multi-purpose area. There's an arts and crafts room on the left. There is a multi-purpose room that's in the center that has a preparation kitchen next to it. that allow serving meals. In the center is the main entry from the north that has the Cyber Cafe and a coffee bar area, and that opens into an outdoor courtyard on the south. It's kind of the center. That white area goes in there. In the bottom in the center is the fitness area. To the right of that is the group exercise multi-purpose area. And to the right of that, in the sort of teal color, is the aquatics, the swimming pool, 25-yard swimming pool, as wellness number one, very similar. Okay. And this is just an enlargement of that, of the left side of the plan, the west side, that shows a little more detail on it. One interesting thing that developed, the yellow area is really an open space that's designed to be an active space more than just circulation. For instance, on the food prep area, there's going to be a demo kitchen that opens into the open space, used for demonstration kitchen classes and that type of thing. And you can see a little more detail on the front entry with the coffee bar and we'll call it the club area on the north, the library for the Cyber Cafe. And a little bit more detail on the recreation side, which is the fitness, weights, cardio, group exercise, and then the pool area. Pool area has a ramp course, radial access, also has it's called a bubble bench where people can sit in the water and socialize. It's on the upper left corner of the pool. And if you remember, there's an upper level mezzanine that's open to the lower, obviously in the center, that is the walking, running track, and also includes some other additional exercise area in the center space, just a small area. You can see where the stair and the elevator come up. And that space overlooks the front entry and the lower level. So it's, again, substantially unchanged. This is a view from from Walker looking southwest across the facility. You can see the main entrance. The left is aquatics, and then the orange-colored panels is the elevated running track space. So it'll have glass around it, so you can look out into the front area and back to the park. The primary materials are brick, cementitious siding, and panels. It'll be in a color on the center area. This is the front entry canopy, and this you'll see in a second is our budget efforts to stay within budget is going to become an alternate, and so we'll see the summary of that in just a second. This is the activity court towards the park. You can see that center open space, off the front area that opens into the activity court into the park. It'll be an outdoor sort of patio. And you can see the upper, the orange area, the upper running walking track overlooking this area as well. This is the view of the front reception area. When you walk in the front door, you can see how open it is. It's designed to be light, airy, a lot of natural light, and the color scheme kind of reflects the Hispanic area of the city. And this is looking from the upper exercise area down towards the front entry. And you can see as you look out, you can see horizontally towards across the city. This is looking from that center open space into the pool. And again, just not going to go through these, but this is a color scheme, is a warm, basically neutral with a warm, inviting color palette throughout the facility, and shows the furnishings throughout the facility. Okay. Now the budget is $10,560,000. Our total construction and FF&E estimate is $10,468,223. And today we have four alternates. Alternate 3 is not being used at this time. Alternate 1 is the 3-bay entrance canopy I just mentioned. Alternate 2 is going to be FF&E for the clinic and offices. Alternate 4, FF&E for the arts and crafts room. And alternate 5 is exterior benches and other types of facilities on the exterior, including a site fence around that back activity court that I've pointed out. So our schedule at this time, we're asked for approval of final documents, construction documents, and they'll go to the council then, and then the bidding in March, received at the end of March, construction then starting later that month, and we anticipate substantial completion of in May of 2017. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Alan? Okay. Cecilia?
The subcommittee is very excited at the final plans, and we feel like it really reflects the community that it's in, and so we're very excited to recommend approval.
Great.
Of the final plans.
Okay. Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Michael is seconded. Is there further discussion or are there further questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Marching forward. Next item, David.
Next item is 17. I'm just losing count on the Roman numerals there.
17.
Recommend joint resolution approving lease agreement between the City of Oklahoma City Public Property Authority and Independent School District Number 89 of Oklahoma County, Oklahoma for MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center Number 2, Project M3-H003. This is the lease agreement for the wellness center that you just saw. It's on school property, so the lease will be a 50-year lease to allow us to build that facility and operate it there, and in turn, what the city will do for that lease is to build those tennis courts you saw in the rendering. And they will also be used by the senior wellness facility, but the school will have new tennis courts there. And this comes with the recommendation from the subcommittee.
All right. Further explanation or questions? Michael?
Yes, I have a question. I thought early on we had talked about or had that all these properties had to be built on city-owned land. And that was an issue with some of the early folks that were proposing to be operators. And so in this case, it doesn't look like the city's actually acquiring the land. They're leasing it. So has something changed?
We have a very lucid explanation that's going to come from our lawyer, Amanda Carpenter. You're welcome. Amanda.
The city has to have a leasehold or an interest in the property, whether that be owning the property or a leasehold interest. And this would be a lease for a long-term lease. The life of the building, the building expectancy is, let me try that again, is about 50 years. So the terms of this lease are 50 years. So there are provisions in this lease that if for some reason it is terminated prior to that time, the school will have to pay us for the building that is existing on the property. There's an appraisal process that it will go through, and then they'll have to pay the funds over to the city if it's terminated prior to that 50-year term.
Was that an option earlier on when we were talking to other operators about South Community College or Oklahoma City Community College, for example? Because I thought they talked about leasing the land, and that wasn't acceptable.
Yes, if you remember going through the process, we had the first RFP, which just generally gave a description of what the law is, and we asked the proposers to give us their suggestion of how they would like to convey the property. In the second RFP round, when we put the second one out, we gave more detail, and I can provide you a copy of that if you'd like. And we specifically stated that the following are forms that would be acceptable, and it would be the fee simple conveyance, which is what we talked about, fee simple ownership, a donation of the property, as well as a long-term lease. And that long-term lease could be for a specific use or for the life of the building. So it was explicitly stated in the RFP prior to receiving those proposals.
So we had a little broader interpretation than maybe we did the first time around.
I think what we did is we provided examples. It's not a broader interpretation. What we did the first time is just provide the language of the law and not give examples. We asked for those examples from the proposers. When they were not coming up with those examples, we decided to provide them to them the second time around for further clarification.
Okay. And so the terms of the lease, is it just we provide the tennis courts and that's all, or is there Is there other
That's it.
payments?
No, that's it.
There's no monthly or annual lease payments?
No, it does have to go to the school board, which I believe it's been
It's
routed.
docketed to go to the school board, so it's kind of all moving parallel paths right now.
And we will need confirmation from the school that there's no use restrictions on this property. But beyond that, the terms of the lease lay out what our interest will be, and they're acceptable under the Oklahoma City ordinance.
But just a reminder as well that how we found this out, that the school board, remember, Amanda, owned the land. We actually thought that land was owned by the city of Oklahoma City, and then through the appraisal process, we learned, correct?
Well, we thought that the tennis courts, not the whole piece of land, but the
Of
tennis
course, I'm
courts
sorry, yes.
was park
Was on
property.
park land,
But
yes.
we subsequently found out that it's not.
Yes, which is where we were, the primary
That's
parcel of the
correct.
land where we were building. And the other part is that the way this is a win-win is if you recall, we are using an extensive part of the schools, of Capitol Hill High School's parking lot that our consumers will be using, the school will allow use for those parking spots for users of the wellness center as well. So it's kind of a really win-win situation.
Kind of like a good solution. Offset we could change that kind of get clarification.
Thank you. Is there further discussion, or are there questions? All right, then, shall we approve it? Been moved and seconded that we approve the lease agreement by this joint resolution. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. That takes us to item number 18.
18 is presentation of MAPS 3 Transit / Modern Streetcar Vehicles, Project M3-S005, Storage and Maintenance Facility, Project M3-S006, and Mainline Design, Project M3-S007. We have Doug Smith here from the Jacobs Group and his team here to give you an update on this.
Doug, welcome, and we appreciate your patience.
Sure.
And look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. Good morning. We'll give you an update today on the status of the vehicle contract, the maintenance facility, and finally the main line. Mark Dorn will come up in a minute and give you the main line update. But first, let me take you through the vehicle update. We are in the middle of contract negotiations with Brookville. We launched that negotiation back on December 3rd with an all-day meeting, which included Brookville's president. It was a very positive meeting. And since then, the dialogue exchange has been weekly and many times daily between them. So we're exchanging technical information, which is allowing us to stay on schedule with our main line and maintenance facility design, with some of their dimensions and tolerances and things that we know that we'll need to account for with their Liberty car. On the legal side, Amanda has been exchanging information, I'll say almost daily, with their attorney. So they're working on the terms and conditions of the contract, and everything is moving forward. Maybe not. We were hopeful that we'd have a contract in front of you today. We didn't make that deadline, but we are continuing to push forward as soon as possible. As far as schedule goes, we are trying to get on their production cycle ahead of Detroit. They're building Detroit's cars right now, and they will be getting an order from Milwaukee. So we're hoping that our order gets in between those two production cycles, which ideally Brookville has indicated that we could likely get a delivery of the first vehicle in late 2017, probably around December. That fits in really well with the schedule for the rest of our construction. So anyway, we're optimistic that we're going to have the contract done soon, get the notice to proceed going, and get things moving. That's it on the vehicle. On the maintenance facility, I'm sorry, here's some pictures of the latest rendering. I forgot to mention, we have another technical information we have is they have done a model of the off-wire running of the batteries. And if you look at the figure on the left, that was the minimum we were hoping for. The blue is the off-wire, the red is on-wire. And the graphic on the right is the maximum that we had hoped to stretch it to, with the green being alternate areas where we weren't sure if we could stretch to or not. The answer we're getting from the modeling is that we really have it figured just about right. They're agreeing with the recommendations of where we're off-wire, and the green areas are still optional. We're confirming it with them in final modeling, but it's possible that maybe one of those green areas could be taken out, most likely the stretch from 17 to 18. We're still designing the overhead wire in those areas, and plan to go forward with the bid alternate in those areas until we feel comfortable that we might be able to take those out. So that's the on-off wire update. On the maintenance facility, here's a picture of a rendering of the latest update on the outside of the facility. There it is. We are planning to do that stone facade, which ties it in with the adjacent Union Station and that red feature strip. We are looking at the block selection and color of that to get it as close to the Union Station as we possibly can. So we're going through that right now, and that is our latest rendering. On the yard, it's real important to understand where the parking positions are for the various trains. I am showing you a 6-train configuration for those parking, and that is going to come up when we start going through this route, the additional route study that we did, so why we think it's important that we have room for 6. Anyway, those are the positions where we'd have storage. We have had just a little update on, I'm going to update you on some of the expandability features of the yard. First of all, the office space, which is right north of position 1, it can be expanded to the east or to the right of your graphic, and we can almost double that office space for expanded operations if we need to. Also, as far as the storage positions for the vehicles, if you see position 4, 5, and 6, there's room south of that to add 2 more lines of 3 vehicles in each line, so 6 more trains could be stored in that yard. It's really a great site. Everything fits in really well, and there's lots of options for expanding into up to a 12-car operation in the future. So we have compared it to other facilities in Tucson, Kansas City, elsewhere when we did the programming of the space, and we feel like it compares well with those facilities and should provide the functions that Embark needs to be able to maintain, wash, and basically host their operations from this location. There is a fire lane at the south end. You see on those 2 gates there, so the emergency vehicles can route through the south end of the facility. We have some flexibility on the site to do some construction phasing. It's really a good site. It gives us lots of options. And, of course, Embark has been along with us every step of the way in terms of how the communications are going to come in and out of the facility, either by radio, fiber, whatever it might be. The office and yard spaces have been under their approval, and the equipment that we're going to order that goes with it. So that's the maintenance facility update. Next, we'll get into the main line.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So we are working towards a design submittal, our 95% design submittal, which we'll be turning in next month. Over the past 4 or 5 months, we've been having bi-weekly meetings with Public Works to work through all the design issues and our solutions, and so we're heavy into the details, as you can imagine, for this final review set. So just to review a little bit of the content that will be in the construction set for the main line. What you see here is our typical track slab. It's the rail embedment detail the rail is set in concrete and is surrounded by a neoprene liner, which helps mitigate against vibration and noise, but it also has a very important insulating quality for what we call straight current. It's a reinforced structure, too, because it allows for the spanning of a utility trench, and so that has been very important in our discussions with Public Works and other utility owners along the streets in order to maintain access for any utilities that cross underneath our tracks. So we're finalizing the structural design of the track slab itself. It's a very shallow track slab, and what you see here is a typical, which is 8 feet wide, which is about which is what we will install in asphalt streets, but in Project 180, the concrete streets, we will remove to a logical point, a jointing in the pavement. So at a minimum, we'll be taking out the concrete for 1 full travel lane. So we've set our horizontal alignment, and that allowed us to proceed with the rail purchase. But so a lion's share of the work has been setting the profile, and that dictates the profile of the tracks, and that dictates how much roadway reconstruction will be involved. And the the graphic you see here is an example of one of our roadway plans. Between the track and the curb line will be an asphalt overlay on Broadway, and then there will be some roadway reconstruction towards the crown and in the as well as in the brick stamped intersection along Broadway specifically. We're working out the details of how to put back as close as possible what the paving patterns there and the intersections, and we're reviewing that with Public Works. We also have, throughout the alignment, are providing upgrades to all the ADA ramps that cross the tracks as well. But back to the profile, we do a very detailed analysis of the grades of the street, the actual shape of the street. The challenge is that the rails of the track need to be flat, and so that, as you can imagine, becomes a challenge when you're trying to put the flat plane into the crown of the street. And so we've gone through a very detailed mathematical model and are finalizing that design work now. So, of course, we have where we have OCS wires, we're doing the layouts of the poles and the support structures and the details. And then to power the wires, we have finalized the locations for the traction power substations. What you see here are the list of the stops as well. Nothing has changed from what we've reviewed with you in the past, but we have finalized the traction power substation sites. There are 6 of them, and generally we worked hard to try to find the most nondescript locations for these. Mostly these are located on an alley access, and so that provided the ability to, I guess, tuck it away from the street rights of way. It also, having that alley access helps us minimize the site that's required. So the buildings themselves are about 12 by 15 feet or 18 feet long, and we need a site that's maybe 20 feet by 30 feet in order to provide the access and access to the equipment in the substation building. Having those alleyways help provide that access from the public alley. So that actually helps minimize the site as well. The stops themselves are being all graded out. The central section of the vehicle that you see in the graphic here is where the doors are for the Brookfield vehicle, and so the platform itself will be 14 inches high in this zone, and then will be, in most cases, we'll have ramps on each end of the platform in order to provide the accessible boarding or access way to the boarding area. Not in all cases, though. In some cases, we do have stairs on one end, but in all cases, we provide accessible routes. And then there's the details of the shelter, and in the back side of the platform that you see there is a grade difference between the sidewalk level and the loading level of the platform. So we have the horizontal line you see there is some of the railings that we provide, which provides the edge protection, but also provides a way for patrons to lean as they wait for a streetcar. And then the shelters are 12 feet wide, and they have a small bench inside, and then the power for the shelter and for the potential ticket vending machine, and also for the signature pylon, which Embark is finalizing the details of that. So the power is all provided for as well in our stop designs. And then this is just an example of the traction power site at the ballpark in Bricktown. We have Flaming Lips Alley, at which we've positioned the substation back away from Joe Carter, and this is just to show you how we've programmed each of these sites. And then this is an example of a very similar traction power substation building that you'll be seeing. This one here is in operation for the Seattle streetcar project. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, well then, thank you. This is, appreciate your presentation. That I want to take just a moment to say, I know that we're pushing everybody's time schedule, including the consultants that we have here. We have 2 items that require action, and we're going to take those up next, and then we will get through the informational items and the other things quickly at the end, but we do need to maintain our quorum here, if we can, for these next 2 items. Okay? All right, let's then go to item 20.
How about 19?
Is it 19?
Yes, sir.
Okay, boy. Seems like it should be 20.
Recommend resolution awarding and approving contract for MAPS 3 Transit/Modern Streetcar Mainline Girder Rail to MF Worth Rail Corporation, $1,766,862.80, project M3-S007C. Doug's going to describe this real quick.
Thank you, Doug.
We opened bids on 4.5 miles worth of rail. It's straight, and there are some curved sections. We did get one bid. It wasn't totally surprising. It's kind of the way the supplier chain is set up from Austria to North America and so on. We did evaluate the bid. It's our recommendation that it be awarded. There were some good things that happened with the bid. Number one, the cost of steel has been stable. The cost of oil is low, which affects the transportation costs, both the shipping and the trucking from Houston. And then also the dollar against the euro is strong. All those things played to our favor, which we had a 25% lower than the engineer's estimate on the bid opening. In all, it was a favorable outcome, and we recommend the award.
Wow, that's good news. Nathaniel, Zane, what's the committee say?
I move to recommend the resolution awarding the contract.
Been moved and seconded that we award and approve this contract through this resolution. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. I guess, Doug, we ought to do this pretty great while all these factors are in our favor, huh? Thank you. All right, item 20.
Recommend MAPS 3 Transit/Modern Streetcar Route Option 3 as the connection to the MAPS 3 Convention Center utilizing $3 million in Oklahoma City Capital Improvement Sales Tax Contingency Funds for the route revision, project M3-S007. Mike Mize is going to start this off, and then the Jacobs Group will take it over.
Mike, before you begin, I want to say this. We're going to depart from our usual procedure a little bit about waiting to the end for comments. Mark Gibbs, a member of the subcommittee, is here, and he has asked for permission to comment on this during this agenda item, and I'm going to permit him to do that. Mike, please begin.
Thanks again for this opportunity. I am just going to do try to do a brief explanation of the dollars and the budget and how we viewed all that during this process. I think you're aware that the goal of this process was to try to find a way to better serve the convention center given its new location. With respect to that, we decided to effectively ignore the fact that there were 2 phases delineated in the implementation plan, each of which had its own separate budget. So as part of this exercise, we chose to determine that all of the $128 million total modern streetcar money allocated as part of the implementation plan was available for this project. We've completely gotten past phase 1 and phase 2, and for purposes of this exercise, we started with the total $128 million as the baseline. As Doug and Lee go through these options, they're going to talk a little bit about cost. The costs that they're going to talk about are relative to that $128 million total modern streetcar budget. You'll see some options that have no increase in cost over that 128. You'll see one that has a $3 million increase, which means that the total modern streetcar budget would have to be increased by $3 million to $131 million, and you'll see some that are $12 and $20 million in excess of the available $128 million. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to go through that again.
Thank you, Mike. Next. Yes, Doug?
All right, so when we, as we started the study, and I'll take you kind of through the process that we've been through to get to where we are today. And first thing I want to say is this is a similar process that we've used on previous route evaluations, like when we established what's the blue line on the map. So it's a similar process, but we went much faster this time because our concern was that we didn't want to delay the things that we have in motion. We're trying to order vehicles, order rail. So we're trying to stay up with everything else. And so that's why we're rushing as much as we can. We want to do it right, but we're trying to get through it as fast as we can. So first of all, we set some criteria, draft criteria, and then we went to a first-level screening, which included the MAPS program management staff working with Embark every step of the way. The convention center team, the park team, we asked them what they thought about what the options should include, and then we met with the transit subcommittee in December, and of course we met with them again yesterday. Collect data on the routes that people thought were the most worthy of evaluation. We came to a point where we are today where we have a recommendation, and that's will be supported by a memo with all the data that we collected and leading to the selection of an alternative, which is what's on your agenda today. The evaluation criteria includes the list that you see there. I believe we've been through it with you before. So anyway, that's what's there. When we went through the process, we had some important considerations that the various stakeholders told us about. We need to make sure we serve the hotel and try to get to the intersection of 3rd and Robinson, if at all possible, which of course is the boulevard. And also try to get from the hotel directly back around into Bricktown, which is an important consideration of having that service from a hotel patron being able to get quickly and easily into Bricktown to those attractions. We also, it was pointed out that Shields will have some traffic challenges. It does include the on-ramp to I-40, so it's going to be a busier street there. And it was noted that if we could add only one additional vehicle, that would be ideal to the overall program budget. Mike mentioned the budget considerations, and so we wanted to be mindful of what was left in the $128 million and how well our recommended alternative would fit with that. Also, what would it do to the Phase 1 schedule and implementation of what we have in place? How much would our recommendation change that? And also, what would happen to the park, depending on what we did adjacent to the park? How would it impact its cost or schedule or the functionality of the park? So there were several options that we dropped out and didn't evaluate further. Option 2 was one where we had an alignment going down Shields and cutting across on the boulevard. We felt that that could be accomplished by going down Robinson, so we dropped that out. Option 6 was one where we went down Shields to 4th Street and cut across between the hotel and the convention center. There were a number of inputs that we got on that thought that 4th Street would not be that useful. It was more important to get down to 3rd and just serve that intersection, so we dropped that out. Another option was to go down Robinson all the way down to approximately 7th Street and cut across through the south end of the park and then back up the existing design that we have in Hudson. That would require 2 trains to run the red loop that you see on the map, and it would be a separate service to Bricktown, so it would meet that goal, but it would require us to operate at least two more trains. Didn't think that was a good idea, and with the impacts to the park that I already described, we didn't think that it was as good as the other options, and we dropped it out. Similarly, option 10 was to run a maintenance track only. Instead of going from Hudson to maintenance, we would go Robinson, cut through the park, and go to maintenance. Again, impacts to the park. There's lots of utilities in Robinson and concerns there. We dropped that one out. Now, Lee's going to come up and tell you about the detailed evaluation we did on the things that we did not drop out.
Okay, keeping with the theme, I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but please feel free to stop me if you have any questions and if I go too fast. One thing to keep in mind with all the routes that we did look at, we wanted to keep future expansion possibilities open. So we didn't want to paint ourselves in the corner by not being able to expand in the future. So all our route options keep future expansion, whether it be to the Health Science Center, Capitol Hill, up to Classen or to Midwest City. Those are still viable options to expand with all the options that I'm presenting. Now, with any route analysis, the one thing we want to start with is the baseline. So our baseline is the existing Phase 1 main line. with no change. This is just over 4.5 miles with 10 to 12-minute headways, and that's the time between a train at a particular stop. No additional vehicles, no additional funds needed. I will try to spend a little more time on the pros and cons. I think those are a little more important than the technical information. But as I mentioned, the pros, there's no additional costs, vehicles, or schedule impacts. Some of the negatives is it doesn't have that direct service to and from Bricktown. From the Convention Center Hotel, you have to walk approximately 800 feet to reach Reno to get to the route, and then you'd have to transfer somewhere along the way, whether it be 4th or Sheridan, walk across Merrion Gardens, to actually get into Bricktown. So that's a big negative with the existing route. Option 3, this would be a 2-route option. So we have the blue route and the red route. So the blue route, which is a modification of our existing Phase 1 main line, would go south on Robinson from Reno to the new boulevard, continue west to Hudson, and then north. And that would increase its length to just under 5 miles, 4.8, 4.9 miles. And then the second route, the pink route or the red route, would also follow the same deviation south of Robinson to the boulevard to north on Hudson, but it would cut across Sheridan to create that Bricktown loop. So that's just over a 2-mile additional service. It does require 1 additional vehicle. Our headways on the main line, the blue line, would stay 10 to 12 minutes. The red line would be about 15 minutes. Now there's 2 cost items here. We have net added cost and additional funds needed. Now the net added cost is when we have the new construction. So our new construction would be the segment on Robinson from Reno to the boulevard, and then from Robinson, then on the boulevard from Robinson to Hudson, and then also the piece on Sheridan. So that's just over a half mile of new construction. The net new construction would be taking out the piece on Reno from Robinson to Hudson. That would be removed from our existing design. So that would create a net new construction of just over 0.3 miles with a net added cost of $9.5 million. Now, the additional funds we would need to complete this would be $3 million. So that would be $3 million on top of the $128 million currently budgeted. So this would be $131 million to complete the option as shown. The pros, it does provide that direct connection to and from the Convention Center Hotel to Bricktown and to Midtown. It gives Embark some flexibility to run full or part-time service. Our existing schedule could be maintained or slightly modified. And one good positive is it increases the service level within Bricktown and the Convention Center and Park. So you'd have a train, if you're at the Park or the Convention Center Hotel, you'd have a train about every 7 minutes. And he would provide you an option of, do I want to go to Bricktown or do I want to go to Midtown? So it gives you that flexibility of where you want to go within the system. And one other positive with this, from looking at it, there is some access right away, so we could actually run the train in its own dedicated lane so it would be out of mixed traffic. So that's a good positive with this option. Some of the negatives, there are some potential utility impacts along Robinson. If we're unable to run the vehicle in a dedicated lane, we'd have to, there would be some reconstruction of the new boulevard to install the tracks. And again, it does exceed the MAPS 3 budget, the total $128 million, by approximately $3 million. Option 4 is our single service option. This is a 1 route. It increases the existing route to 5.4 miles by modifying it to go south on Robinson to the new boulevard, east on the boulevard to E.K. Gaylord Shields, north to Sheridan to do the Bricktown Loop, and then south on Shields to the boulevard, and west of the boulevard to Hudson and back north. So we would remove from our design the track on Sheridan from Robinson to Bricktown, and then also the track from Bricktown or the BNSF bridges to Hudson. Again, 1 additional vehicle to maintain the 10 to 12-minute headways, and we would need an additional $12 million on top of the 128 to complete this option. Some positives, it does provide, again, the direct connection to the Convention Center Hotel, to and from Bricktown and to Midtown, with just one route with one additional train. So again, if you're at the park or the hotel, you would have the option, if I want to go west to go into Midtown, or do I want to go east to go into Bricktown? There are some negatives with this route, though. It would have some significant schedule impacts to our current design, the utility impacts along Robinson, also some traffic impacts on Shields and EK Gaylords, since that's a major in and out route from downtown to I-40. It also has the schedule impacts to EK Gaylord. You know, they're getting ready to start the Project 180 improvements there and also the intermodal hub improvements. So by taking, you know, currently the track is designed to go south on Gaylord in front of the hub. This would have to be redesigned to go north. Now, this also could potentially have implications to the intermodal hub Tiger Grant. Specifically, the environmental assessment that was done to clear it environmentally, it was environmentally cleared to have the track go south on Gaylord. Whether the FTA would want us to relook at that to move the track to the other side of the street is unknown, but that could be a potential impact. Again, it's an additional $12 million. And also this line could, if we're wanting to connect from the Health Science Center down to the Hudson Walker area or Capitol Hill, that route would not have a direct connection to the intermodal hub. There would be a transfer required to actually connect to the hub with a future extension to the Health Science Center in Capitol Hill. Option 5 is relocating the storage and maintenance facility to the east side of the park. This would create a second red line that would have the Bricktown Loop connecting via Sheridan. But this would be double tracking along Robinson, and the maintenance facility that we currently have that's on the west side of the park would be moved over to the east side of the park on 7th. This would need about an additional $18.5 million to complete this option. Now, pros, it does have that direct connection to and from the Convention Center Hotel, but there is a transfer required if you wanted to go to the heart of the Central Business District or Midtown. We do have some schedule impacts potentially to the park and some functionality impacts to the park. As you saw in a previous presentation, the east side of the park is not only for parking but also for food truck service, and by double tracking on Robinson, that could potentially impact some functionality that they're programming. Also, you know, and again, we have the utilities, and then also it significantly impacts our maintenance facility schedule. It would require a complete redesign of the maintenance facility. It would require property acquisition on the east side of the park, building demolition because there are existing structures there. There are some hazmat concerns potentially on that site, and then access going from Robinson down 7th to get to the site. There's some grades that could create some issues. And again, there's some higher risks and unknowns with relocating the maintenance facility and going along Robinson. And again, the almost $19 million to implement. Option 7A is we're calling the Bricktown turnaround. This would be the blue line, the existing route we have today would stay the same. We'd add an additional red line that would go south of Robinson to the Boulevard and then north on Hudson and turn around via Kerr. Now, one issue with this is to maintain that 15-minute headway on the red route, it would require 2 additional vehicles. So that would increase our cost to just over $7 million to implement. Pros and cons, it does provide that connection center, the direct connection to and from the Convention Center Hotel. Well, not direct, but a connection to the hotel, from the hotel to Bricktown and the CBD. We didn't anticipate any schedule impacts to our existing design. Cons, again, there's no direct connection because you do have to travel significantly out of the way, all the way up to downtown, the Kerr, to actually get to Midtown. So really it's not a direct connection to and from Midtown. Again, the utility impacts along Robinson, you would have to transfer if you wanted to get into Midtown. There are some significant engineering challenges along Kerr, so we're not even certain if we could actually put the track there, engineering-wise. Again, 2 additional vehicles and higher operating costs. 7B is very similar to 7A. Instead of using Kerr to turn around, we're using Park. The same additional funds is just over $7 million. We would need 2 additional vehicles. Again, pros and cons are the same. Really, the engineering, there's the same engineering challenges along Park as Kerr, and you don't have that direct connection. 9A and B is we're calling a Robinson tail. 9A is a Robinson tail track. This is actually double tracking Robinson south of Reno and then having a tail track that would turn into 4th Street where the vehicle would stop for loading, unloading for the Convention Center Hotel and the park and also the Convention Center itself. 1 additional vehicle and about $8 million to implement this option. Pros, it does have that direct connection, again, to and from the Convention Center Hotel to Bricktown. One thing that Embark likes, it gives the ability to turn the cars around. And really, it's not physically turning the car around, but what it does is by having that tail track, the operator will get out one side of the vehicle, walk to the other side, and it switches the side that the people are unloading and loading from. So with one direction, one side of the vehicle is all the doors are opening, closing. By using the tail track and the operator changing the direction he operates from, would the other side of the doors will operate. So it would create even wear on both sides of the vehicles, which could decrease maintenance costs in the long run. Again, negatives, there are some utility impacts on Robinson and 4th Street, the transfer required to reach Midtown and the Central Business District, and the additional $8 million to implement. 9B, very similar to 9A. Instead of doing a double track down the 4th, this is actually a single track that would probably be in the median of Robinson and would terminate just north of the boulevard on Robinson. This would be additional $2.5 million to implement. Again, it provides a direct connection to and from the hotel to Bricktown, gives Embark the ability to turn vehicles around. We don't expect any impacts to the Phase 1. As with 9A, it does give the Embark the flexibility in how they want to operate the service, whether it be full-time or special event service. Negatives, again, the $2.5 million to implement, utility impacts, and then a transfer required to get into the core of the Central Business District and Midtown. 12A, this is just a Bricktown loop using Sheridan as a turnaround, so the red route would just go a loop from Sheridan into Bricktown, back along Reno to Hudson, and up to Sheridan, just creating that loop. This is about $1 million to implement. Again, 1 vehicle. Some of the negatives is, probably the biggest negative is it would require people at the hotel or even the park to walk about 800 feet to actually reach the route to Reno. So once at Reno, they would have the option of, do I want to go in the Midtown? I'd take the blue route. I want to go in the Bricktown. I'd take the red route. And one thing we have is as a bid option now is called a Joe Carter Terminus, where the vehicle would pull out to give the driver a break. It's a bid alternate now, but with this option, it would be required. We'd have to have that. 12B, very similar as 12A, but instead of going all the way to Hudson and using Sheridan, this is just using Robinson, go north on Robinson to create the Bricktown loop. Additional funds for this route is just under $500,000 to implement, but it has the same negatives where you'd have to walk the 800 feet to get to the route itself, and then you choose which way you want to go from there. Now, we have 3 viable options from our analysis based on the various costs to implement. For additional MAPS 3 commitment of around approximately $1 million, we would recommend option 12A. That's the Bricktown loop using Sheridan. We believe this is more viable because we are serving Devon, so we feel that we could potentially get a little better ridership by having the service with Devon getting into Bricktown. For an additional commitment of about $3 million, we would recommend option 3. This was the deviation of the main line, the blue line, down to the boulevard from Reno along Robinson, and then the second red route with doing the Bricktown loop via Sheridan. And then option for additional commitment of $12 million, we recommend the option 4, the single service. This would be the double tracking along the boulevard, one route, one additional vehicle to accomplish this. Now, our recommendation is option 3. Again, the main line is deviated to the boulevard. We have 2 routes, one being just under 5 miles, one just being over 2 miles. So we'd have a total service route length of almost 7 miles. One additional vehicle. The headways would be 10 to 12 minutes for the blue line, 15 minutes for the red line, an additional $3 million to implement. But really, we feel this one gives us the best options for not only people who are here for conventions, but the everyday resident and worker of Oklahoma City. It provides better service to the park. It actually gets you to the front door of the park and the front door of the Convention Center Hotel, and it gives those patrons an option of don't want to go to Bricktown or don't want to go to Midtown. And with the increased service, there's a train every 7 minutes, so it provides better frequency, better service, better options to go where you want to go, and really can help promote that park once mentality. You can park, get where you want to go within the city, to the park, to a ball game, to the arena, to the convention. It also does serve, just serves the existing municipal parking structures much better. And again, gives Embark the flexibility of how they want to operate the service and manage their O&M operation and maintenance costs with this. So they could run this route full time. They could run it during special events. So it gives them the flexibility on how they want to operate the service. So we feel this is the best option for an approximate $3 million additional investment. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Anyone?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Number one, I don't care if the people at the convention center have to walk 800 feet. This is for, MAPS voted this in for the people of Oklahoma City, and I think we should be concentrating on what best serves our residents, not what best serves people that come in here on a convention and are on an expense account and can afford Uber or whatever else. So I'm saying I would really like to drive this route myself and have a chance to kind of see where it's going just visually. So it's just my comment.
Sure. Nathaniel?
So the context of our group reviewing this, because it's been asked of us, was essentially with the convention center moving, how can we better interact with that? But true, it's not just about the convention center, it's also about the park. And it also addresses, we were actually very pleased to see that it addresses being able to connect the park, Chesapeake Arena, Cox, future development in that area with Bricktown 2 ways. And so we view it as actually a really excellent way to tie in Court Shore, kind of North Court Shore development, with being able to go, to and from, be able to choose either Bricktown or Midtown. And so for us, at first it was perhaps stressful to think about the convention center moving, what does that mean? But it's actually, our group was very pleased yesterday to see some of the benefits that the whole system gets from this. So the flexibility, the 7-minute headway, and still being able to extend into Capitol Hill, and then even addressing Court Shore in a way that it hadn't addressed before. So those are some things that came out of our discussion yesterday as well.
I'd just like to add, too, that since it was posted on the MAPS 3 site today, that the comments of this proposed option 3 were overwhelming. And I think more people are excited about what this presents than what the original route did.
Okay, so it comes with the recommendation of the subcommittee?
It does.
Right. Are there other questions?
I guess I like the idea, I think, of having the loop to Bricktown and being able to get in and out of Bricktown without having to make the whole route. It seems like the route gets more and more complicated, more and more, or less intuitive as we go. There's a lot of turns and curves. And somebody looking at a map and trying to figure out where they want to go and how they're going to get there seems like it's getting pretty complicated.
Well, one thing that this loop does help, though, is it will say Bricktown Loop, and there's no doubt if you get on it, you're going to Bricktown.
Right, yeah.
And if you don't get on it, you're going up, to Midtown.
So, I guess we're going to 2 routes as opposed to 1 route that we had before.
That's right.
I think that's positive.
And I'd like to add on to what Nathaniel was saying, is that Embark thinks that this will help with ridership, mostly because it touches all those garages. And it not only just serves the convention center, but it helps disperse all of that.
Well, it's going to help your lunch hour traffic, I think.
Sure.
People coming out of their offices downtown, going to Bricktown for activities or the park and stuff. So,
I do want to recognize, though, that points are very, well taken, and you'd be surprised how much, we have similar sentiments in our discussions as well. And I think, the more you add to it, the more you have to be very deliberate about what you're trying to accomplish.
I mean, we're studying, we're familiar with the city. We know what these different places are and what it's trying to touch. But I'm thinking as a visitor coming in and looking at it, what in the heck is this thing doing? It's going over, circling all over the place. But I think it's the right answer. I guess what we're saying, though, if we're also in the process of recommending number 3. We're also asking to increase the budget for the streetcars, and is that going to come out of the $10 million contingency infrastructure line? Or?
We are. What we've recommended here is that it comes out of that infrastructure line, and it's $11 million right now, so it'll be $3 million out of that.
And that would be, of course, a decision for the city council to make. Further questions or discussion? Well, I'm going to invite Mark Gibbs. Mark, as perhaps most of you know, has been a faithful member of the Transit Committee for a long time, and when he comes, we always invite him to speak. Mark,
Thanks,
I don't want to rush you, but you've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Mark Gibbs, Transit Subcommittee. I was at a meeting yesterday flying back, so I'm using my travel comp time wisely to come down here. I passed a lot of questions on to Nathaniel, and I believe that was discussed yesterday, but we're a bit frustrated about the length of time we had to review this. Time to think about it a bit more, time to talk to some of the committee members this morning about a couple of issues I want to bring up with you. We were dealt a very tough hand here. We didn't ask for the convention centre to be moved, so the solution and the budgetary requirements is probably this is the best solution that we can come up with. To specifically respond to your comment about serving the convention centre only, that was definitely driving a lot of this, but I maintain that it's important to serve that corner of Boulevard and Robinson. That's not just the convention centre, it's also the park, it's also the Chesapeake Arena. That's a key location to serve it in both directions so that people can come from anywhere to and from there. So one really important point about that is the urban design of that particular boulevard, and it's something that would encourage the other consultants, so Hargreaves, Populous, to be thinking about that. That particular design, in particular because this selection still puts you caddy corner across from the convention centre and across from the park, that stop is very important, and good urban design principles should be used for that particular location. So possibly sight lines from the park, making sure trees aren't presenting the visibility of that stop, the intersections, using P180 principles for perhaps paint that actually sticks and making it very clear that people can walk across that. If we're adding a dedicated transit lane, we're further extending the width of the boulevard. So making that very pedestrian friendly, that intersection is going to be very important, and so consultant coordination is going to be very important. Another technical question, headways. We didn't really get into that. Headways is a service turn up and go. There's a big difference between 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. That's the bare minimum for turn up and go. You get in a 20-minute, 30-minute service, other streetcar systems have failed because of that. And we've got to make sure that we can effectively serve that with all the vehicles we have and one vehicle in the depot, a spare vehicle. And I'm a little worried, and I'd like to know more about exactly how extending Route 1 would not affect the headway on that, and can a 15-minute headway actually be achieved on Route 2? So that's just a concern I have there. And then just a couple of other things to mention. If it is lack of whether a system's intuitive or not, information displays are very important. We want to see an ad alternate for digital signage at the stops as to part of the bid coming up for the design and construction. That allows to install digital signage, interactive screens that can provide maps, tell people which service is going where, and also opportunities for advertising. And I know Council is particularly concerned about the opportunity to use capital costs here in the MAPS budget to defray future O&M budget. So I think that's very important, something we want to see. And then also possibly, well, not possibly, we would like to see an ad alternate for complete TWC, train to wayside communication at all intersections, because it may become even further important that we make sure that these headways are properly maintained throughout the system. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. We appreciate your service on that subcommittee. Let's see, do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Been moved and seconded that we approve it. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry,
I
Bob.
do
Yes,
just
go
have
ahead.
one other question that I don't recall we talked about. Sort of a technical question with the, excuse me, the two routes. Does it improve the off-wire service that we get?
Well, the off-wire modeling, we'll have to confirm that with the vehicle supplier. We do anticipate that the stop in the vicinity of the convention center might have what we call a charging bar. So it's just like an 80-foot long segment of the wire. And so for the blue route, we think that the performance of the vehicle will be just fine. I believe the new, Rick Gustafson just left, but the new modeling shows that they can achieve this and have a 5-year battery life. But with the red line, the percentage of on-wire versus off-wire is much less. And so therefore we feel that charging bar might be necessary at the convention center. And so we also think that, as Lee mentioned, that if we put in, we'll explore the potential to put in a siding, a place for the vehicle to pull out of the way, so the blue line can continue to service, and then the red line will have a siding, and they can receive their charge, but also the operators, they need a place to have a break, and also, it would dwell and wait for a few minutes before it, run the loop again. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, generally, I just, as a matter of personal preference, would much prefer that we are off-wire as much as possible, and if it can be done with a bar at a dwell point or something like that, then...
We think that would be the least obtrusive.
Right. Yeah. And it looked as if by going to the two-service route approach, it would enhance the opportunity to reduce the amount of wire that we have to use to operate the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, it's based on the performance of the actual vehicle. So the constraint would be the vehicle on the blue route, now has to go 1,600 feet further or so. And so that will be analyzed. And perhaps if you recall Doug's graphic with the segments in question, maybe, we might do a little horse trading with the on-wire, off-wire. So we'll be doing that analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you for all the comments. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion is adopted. That takes us to item number 21 on new business. Any new business, David? No, sir. Is there anything additional from any of the subcommittees? Then we'll move past item 22 to item 23, and I'm just going to commend for your reading the items number 23. There are a couple of real estate purchase agreements there. The explanation is there. Anyone have any questions about those? All right, then we're going to go past those to item number 24. David, anything we haven't talked about already?
Well, the only thing we haven't talked about is the convention center, and the site acquisition is underway, as you see on the informational items, and design is also underway. Trails and sidewalks have a lot going on. The Phase 2 I-44 is in design and or acquiring right-of-way. Phase 3 trails is in design, and sidewalks are being built all over the city. I have a video that I was going to show. We won't show it today. It's of the fairgrounds construction. You can find that on YouTube, and you can probably find it on our website too. It's a short video.
Yeah, I've seen that video. It's really good, so I commend that. I commend that to you. All right, that brings us to item 25. Wow, 25. Any comments by the board? Staff? Anything else? All right, citizens here. Any citizens have any comments? If not, Michael Adams is moving that we adjourn. And Nathaniel is seconding that. All in favor say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.